Hands down, my favorite video game console would probably be this guy right here. This piece of hardware was there with me during some of the most memorable moments of my life. Road trips, local and international flights, or even just the ride on the bus and subway coming home from school. This was with me. Well, not this one. This 3DS I bought like 2 years ago. You know, back when they were actually affordable. This is my actual console from my teenage years. A red, new 3DS XL that I got when I was like 15. And had it not been for my intuition to buy a protective shell for it, it would probably be way more damaged. The only thing that has sadly not aged well on this is the joystick. The plastic became sticky and then the joystick finally just cracked randomly while playing one night. These things are not really made to last, unfortunately. And I wouldn't be surprised that in like 10 years, replacing the joysticks on these things will become standard. Hell, I replaced a perfectly good stock joystick on this 3DS just because this ThinkPad one felt better. This small swap actually made playing Majora's Mask on the 3DS much more enjoyable. And that's one of the downsides of this console, because it's a fact that the 3DS was incredibly weak compared to other portable consoles during its time, like the PS Vita. But I feel like it made up for that with all of its charming, innovative features, like the topic of today's video, the camera. You just have to boot up the console to show you all, and let's just ignore that for now and focus on the camera app here. Yeah, let's just do that. Since the DSi, every DS has had a camera built into the system. Many games and software also took advantage of this function of the console, and this wasn't any different on the 3DS either. In fact, Nintendo utilized the camera even more this time around. Remember those AR cards that came with your 3DS when you opened the box? Those are pretty cool. And also QR scanning Mii's was fun too. It made sharing Mii's much easier all around, and now you can have the entire cast of your favorite show or book on your Tamagotchi Life Island. My personal favorite app that used the 3DS camera was the Pokemon Dream Radar, which allowed you to get really rare legendaries for like $3 back in the day. Though I never beat Black and White 2, but I still downloaded it before the 3DS shut down because who wouldn't want a Dream Ball Sinnoh legendary? You yourself might be more familiar with Face Raiders, a game that came with the 3DS that you played like 3 times back in 2011 because there were like no games for the 3DS yet. Now, I could talk more about the different uses of the 3DS camera, but I only want to focus on one, and that is this. As you can see, the 3DS software has built-in stop motion. Now, if you're new here, I want to say of course, hello, but also, we love Bionicle here. One of the fun things to do with Bionicle is of course stop motion animating them, and I'm no stranger to stop motion. In fact, one of the first ones I ever made was actually on my original first model 3DS back in like 2011. I distinctly remember animating my Tahu and Paraka stars, but being like 11 at the time, I didn't know jack shit like what I was doing, so I kind of made them just slide in front of each other and look up, and that was it. Today I want to animate with the 3DS photo app, but unlike then, I know more of what makes a stop motion actually good. The ability to implement that is something else, but I do get the concept of what makes a stop motion animation look good. So I'll try my best using the very soon to be 10-year-old device right here. But as much as I just want to jump in and start animating, I have to have a plan first. I'll be animating on my regular video recording desk, of course, and I'll also be using these 2 photography USB lights I got off of Amazon. This will make the shots look a lot more clear. Since the 3DS has a wide, sturdy bottom, I actually won't need a tripod for most of the filming. However, for some shots I will need the 3DS to be elevated. But since the dimensions of the 3DS are not standard for a camera, you'd be right to assume that there is no actual tripod that could fit a 3DS. But luckily I could just use Lego to solve my problem. My 3DS for these shots will just sit on top of this Pink Parrot Creator 3-in-1 box. Next I chose characters to animate with, and as much as I wanted to animate with the Bionicle stars Tahu and Nectan, they just aren't good at all for animation. They have those really garbage OA Bionicle square joints that crack by just looking at them. I wasn't going to ruin these joints for this video. Also, they were a little too tall for my liking, so I decided to animate with these guys. The 2003 Matoran are my favorite, and the best thing about them is the articulation in their waist and legs is Technic based. Technic is perfect for stop motion, and allows for easy slight movements. This is very close to traditional stop motion figures that use soft metal wires for their limbs that are very easy to animate with, or at least easier to animate with than compared to huge and rigid Bionicle ball and socket limbs. I went with 4 Matoran for this animation. I chose a fire, earth, ice, and stone Matoran. If you haven't noticed, I actually have a Matoran torso back piece in black. It's 3D printed because LEGO never made one appropriately colored for most Anu Matoran or any Lee Matoran. For this animation, I want to have them play a simple game of goalie. I could never recall seeing someone actually making a stop motion of this Matoran sport, so I want to try my hand in recreating it loosely. Before I even begin animating, I decided to replace the Coley puck that comes with the sets with a normal 2008 Zamer sphere. The reason, if it's not obvious, is the fact it looks more like a Coley ball used in the movie. One problem with this, however, is that the Zamer sphere does not fit inside the Coley stick mouth, so I'll have to use sticky tack clay to keep it from falling out. Sticky clay is probably a stop motion animator's best tool, as it prevents your characters from sliding between shots. However, Bionicle characters, or at least some of them, have weird feet, so you usually need an odd amount of clay depending on who you're animating with. You'll probably notice the clay in between shots. Just a note, you can edit out excessive clay, but I mean, I have no intention of doing that with this 3DS animation. What's the point of putting so much effort into it? Now that I have my ideas, character, lighting, and 3DS camera set up, I was ready to begin animating. The animation itself didn't take too long, but yeah, there were a few annoying things that I could recount while recording the animation. Of course, if you're a stop motion animator or a fan of Bionicle, you can imagine the total blame won't lie solely on the 3DS. In fact, surprisingly, the 3DS was very simple to animate on. Just one big button that takes a shot. Plus the photo app gives you very basic onion skidding. What that means is you can basically see a slight transparent overlay of the previous frame. In theory, this should help remind me what my last frame was, but at the same time, it sucked really bad. You see, the 3DS does not have a very powerful camera to begin with. In fact, most photos look grainy, and paired with the untoggleable onion skidding, it can make the last movement or even your current movement a little hard to see. This caused me to throw away a few moments of animation actually, and I'll even throw them on screen so you can see. On top of that, features that we use every time we make stop motion animation, like project frame rate, stretching the length of a single frame on screen, or even grid so we can center our shots, are all absent from the 3DS stop motion photo app. I understand this was probably a last minute addition to their children's app, or even just a proof of concept, but stop motion animation was not something new at this point, or hell, even difficult to get right. So I don't understand why Nintendo couldn't work on this app a little more and make it even better. Reminder, in 2011, there was literal stop motion apps on phones that would blow the 3DS out of the water. I actually should mention I did try to animate with Tahu and Nectan, but it was just too difficult for me with the 3DS right now. If I want to make a decent animation for a hard to animate character that will probably end with a few broken pieces that are pretty expensive to replace, I'll use my camera that can actually take HD quality photos. But despite all the shortcomings of the system, I still managed to animate with the limitations of the 3DS. All I had to do now was export the raw footage, which you could do by first unscrewing the back cover on the new 3DS XL. There I can access the SD card. I theorized the reason they make accessing things like the SD card so cumbersome is to lower the chance of custom firmware being installed. I imagine that's the same reason why they removed the old Wi-Fi on and off switch from some of the older 3DS models. And after some quick video editing, I finished the stop motion, which I hope you guys enjoy. And yeah, that was the animation. I'm not gonna lie, I am proud of the animation, but setting up and creating the story was somehow even more fun than animating itself. Again, Bionicle figures are somewhat difficult to animate with, and I can see why hardly many people still animate with these things. I hope to see in the future more innovation when it comes to Bionicle stop motion. People utilizing mixel joints for movement is probably the best example of why innovation is needed, because that made animating so much easier, and in return more enjoyable. Anyways, I want to thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, consider hitting the subscribe button and click like on the video, if you enjoyed it of course. And with that, I'll see you next time.